Y'all, just when everybody thought the Remy Ma, Papoose, and Claressa Shields situation had finally run out of gas, somebody apparently poured a whole can of gasoline on it. Because Remy is clapping back, Claressa is back in the conversation, and now Shalita Savage is stirring up a completely different set of rumors involving Papoose and Khadija. And baby, this timeline is getting messy, because if you thought this was just about Remy versus Claressa, think again. Remember, this entire situation exploded publicly after Remy accused Papoose of getting involved with boxing champion Claressa Shields, while Papoose fired back with accusations of his own. Since then, Claressa and Remy have traded enough shade to keep social media working overtime. But Remy clearly wasn't done. After Papoose publicly claimed he had contributed to Remy's writing, Remy jumped back in the booth with her WAFL freestyle, and fans immediately interpreted several bars as shots at both Pap and Claressa. Now here's where things take another turn. Shalita Savage has entered the chat with claims and rumors surrounding Papoose and Khadija. And if you've been following this saga from the beginning, you already know one new allegation can completely change how people look at everything that came before it. So what exactly is Shalita claiming? Why is Khadija suddenly being mentioned in Papoose's relationship drama? And most importantly, does this new tea explain why Remy has been coming at Claressa with so much smoke? Because there may be way more happening behind the scenes than social media has been shown. Grab your snacks because we're breaking down the posts, the responses, the timeline, and what's actually been confirmed versus what remains internet speculation. And trust me, the timeline is where things get interesting. Now, to really understand why this situation has everybody talking again, we have to look at how quickly the drama surrounding Remy Ma, Papoose, and Claressa Shields went from private relationship problems to a full-blown public spectacle. For years, Remy and Papoose were viewed by many fans as one of hip-hop's strongest couples. Their relationship survived prison time, career struggles, family challenges, and plenty of industry pressure. So when cracks started appearing publicly, people were genuinely shocked. But once accusations began flying back and forth, that picture-perfect image started falling apart right in front of everybody. Suddenly, fans weren't just watching a marriage struggle behind closed doors. They were watching screenshots, allegations, interviews, social media posts, and subliminal messages get dissected in real time. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, Claressa Shields became one of the biggest names attached to the controversy. Remy publicly accused Papoose of being involved with Claressa, and that immediately sent social media into detective mode. Claressa wasn't some random person being dragged into celebrity gossip either. She was already a highly accomplished boxing champion with her own reputation, fan base, and outspoken personality. So naturally, once her name became connected to Papoose, people wanted answers. Claressa eventually addressed the situation publicly, while Papoose also pushed back against claims being made about him. That's when things became even more complicated, because instead of one clear version of events, audiences were suddenly hearing completely different stories from the people involved. And whenever that happens online, everybody chooses a side. Some viewers believed Remy was exposing what she felt had happened behind the scenes. Others questioned whether the public was getting the complete story. Meanwhile, every new comment seemed to create another headline. But Remy Ma has never exactly built her reputation on staying silent when somebody comes for her. This is a woman whose entire rap career has been fueled by confidence, confrontation, and the ability to turn personal tension into bars people debate for days. So when the conversation shifted toward allegations that Papoose had contributed to her writing, fans immediately knew that was going to hit a nerve. For a rapper, especially somebody with Remy's history and lyrical reputation, questioning who writes the rhymes is bigger than ordinary relationship shade. That challenges artistic credibility. And once Remy responded musically, listeners immediately started examining every line, trying to figure out exactly who she was addressing and whether certain lyrics were aimed at Papoose, Claressa, or both. That brings us to the latest layer of this increasingly tangled story, because Shalita Savage has now become a name circulating in the conversation, with claims and rumors involving Papoose and Khadija adding another angle for viewers to examine. And this is where we need to separate what people are saying online from what has actually been established. Social media can turn an allegation into an accepted fact within hours, especially when multiple personalities start repeating the same story. But repetition is not confirmation. Still, the reason these rumors are getting attention is because people are now going back through the timeline and asking whether there were signs they previously overlooked. And Khadijah's name entering the discussion raises even more questions about whether the public has only been seeing one small piece of a much larger relationship breakdown. If the claims circulating are accurate, viewers want to know where they fit into the timeline. If they aren't accurate, then somebody could be getting pulled into a highly publicized dispute based entirely on speculation. Either way, Shalita's commentary has given internet detectives another trail to follow. And you already know they are searching old posts, interviews, photographs, comments, and anything else they believe might connect the dots. Meanwhile, Claressa remains impossible to ignore, because her public personality is almost the complete opposite of somebody who quietly backs away from controversy. She is competitive, outspoken, and clearly comfortable defending herself when challenged. Remy is similarly direct, which is exactly why their tension became such combustible entertainment online. Neither woman has the kind of personality audiences expect to simply absorb public criticism without responding. But underneath all the viral clips and explosive headlines is a much bigger question. What actually happened between Remy and Papoose before everything became public? Because depending on whose account you believe, the timeline can look completely different. And with new names, old accusations, and fresh rumors continuing to surface, the story may be far more complicated than a simple love triangle. The deeper you examine what each person has said, the more contradictions start demanding attention, and one particular detail in that timeline could change how people interpret everything that happened next. And that timeline becomes especially important when you consider how dramatically the public perception of Remy Ma and Papoose has changed. For years, audiences saw Papoose standing beside Remy through some of the most difficult moments of her life, and that loyalty became central to their public image. They were frequently presented as proof that a hip-hop relationship could survive extraordinary pressure. That history is exactly why their fallout generated so much attention. People were not simply watching another celebrity breakup. They were watching a relationship they had followed for years unravel publicly, with both sides making accusations that challenged what fans thought they knew. Every statement suddenly carried extra weight, because audiences started comparing the present-day drama with the couple's carefully established history. Then Claressa Shields entered the equation, and the conversation changed almost overnight. Claressa is accustomed to confrontation inside a boxing ring, but celebrity relationship drama creates a completely different type of fight. In boxing, there are rules, rounds, judges, and eventually a winner. On social media, there is no final bell. A single comment can restart an argument days later, and screenshots can keep circulating long after somebody deletes the original post. That environment created the perfect storm because Remy and Claressa both have strong personalities and passionate supporters. Every response became ammunition for another debate, while fans searched for hidden meanings in captions, interviews, jokes, and even seemingly ordinary comments. What makes the situation even more fascinating is how Papoose found himself positioned directly between two women who are both extremely accomplished in completely different arenas. Remy earned her reputation through battle rap, records, and decades in hip-hop, while Claressa built hers through championship boxing. Neither woman is known for backing away when challenged, so once their names became connected through Papoose, people immediately expected fireworks. But the internet sometimes treats celebrity disputes like scripted television, forgetting that the people involved have families, careers, and reputations that can be affected by allegations. That distinction matters, especially as increasingly dramatic rumors begin entering the conversation without independent confirmation. And that is exactly why the claims associated with Shalita Savage are attracting attention. Once another person begins discussing alleged information involving Papoose and Khadijah, viewers naturally start wondering whether there are additional chapters to this story that were never publicly discussed. But an explosive claim is still only a claim unless evidence supports it. That has not stopped social media detectives from examining every available clue, though. Old photographs get resurfaced. Forgotten interviews suddenly become relevant again. Comments that appeared harmless years ago are analyzed as if they contain secret messages. Before long, speculation begins mixing with established facts, and separating the two becomes increasingly difficult. This is where Remy's response becomes particularly interesting, because her music gives her a platform where she can address controversy without sitting down for a traditional interview. A rapper can say something through a bar, leave enough ambiguity to avoid naming somebody directly, and allow listeners to debate the intended target. Remy understands that game better than most. When listeners believe she is throwing lyrical shots, they immediately begin decoding every reference. Was that line about Papoose? Was another aimed at Claressa? Was she responding to criticism about her songwriting? Or were fans connecting dots that Remy never intended to connect? That uncertainty keeps the conversation alive, because everybody believes they have discovered something different. Meanwhile, Papoose's perspective cannot simply be removed from the story. He has publicly disputed claims and presented his own account of problems within the marriage. That means viewers are dealing with competing narratives, rather than one uncontested sequence of events. When two people who shared years together begin publicly describing the breakdown of their relationship, there can be enormous differences in how each person remembers what happened, when it happened, and why it happened. Add new romantic relationships, outside personalities, social media, and millions of spectators, and the situation becomes even harder to untangle. The biggest mistake would be assuming every viral rumor automatically completes the puzzle. Sometimes new information clarifies an old controversy, but sometimes it only creates more confusion. The claims involving Khadija need to be viewed through that lens until reliable evidence establishes exactly what occurred. What matters right now is that the allegation has reopened questions about the timeline surrounding Papoose's personal life, and people are paying close attention to who responds next. Because if Remy addresses these newer claims directly, this story could shift again. If Papoose responds, viewers may receive another completely different account. And if Claressa decides she has something else to say, then the tension everybody thought was cooling down could heat right back up. With Shalita's commentary now circulating alongside older accusations, the real question is no longer simply who clapped back at whom. It is whether all these separate controversies are actually connected, or whether the internet has combined several different stories into one enormous scandal. And the answer may depend on what gets revealed next. And this is exactly where the story starts getting even more complicated, because once multiple names become attached to the same controversy, the timeline matters more than the headlines. Social media loves a dramatic revelation, but the real question is always when something allegedly happened, and whether that timing matches what the people involved have publicly said. With Remy Ma, Papoose, Claressa Shields, Shalita Savage, and now Khadija being discussed in the same online conversation, viewers are trying to determine whether these stories genuinely overlap or whether separate situations are being bundled together because the internet loves one enormous scandal. That distinction is important, because a rumor can sound convincing when placed beside another allegation, even if there is no verified connection between them. What cannot be ignored is how dramatically the public image surrounding Remy and Papoose has shifted. Their relationship was once celebrated specifically because Papoose appeared committed during periods when maintaining that commitment required enormous patience. Fans watched that story for years, and many became emotionally invested in the idea that their marriage represented loyalty surviving difficult circumstances. So when the relationship deteriorated publicly, some viewers reacted almost like they personally knew the couple. Suddenly, old interviews were being replayed, old compliments were being questioned, and moments that once seemed romantic were being viewed through an entirely different lens. That is what happens when celebrity relationships collapse publicly. People rewrite the history based on whatever information appears afterward. But then comes Claressa, whose presence changed the temperature of the conversation completely. Claressa has never presented herself as someone easily intimidated by criticism, and that confidence naturally creates viral moments when somebody challenges her publicly. Remy carries the same type of energy. Put two outspoken personalities on opposite sides of an emotional controversy, and social media practically builds the boxing ring itself. Every comment becomes another round. Every response gets scored by viewers. People declare winners and losers before anyone even knows the complete story. And because Claressa is literally associated with fighting professionally, the comparisons practically write themselves. Still, underneath the entertainment value are serious questions about what is verified and what remains speculation. Shalita Savage's name circulating alongside alleged information about Papoose and Khadija has created another wave of curiosity. But curiosity cannot substitute for evidence. If somebody makes a claim online, viewers should examine exactly what was said rather than immediately expanding it into something bigger. Did the person claim first-hand knowledge? Were they repeating something somebody else allegedly told them? Is there documentation supporting it? Those differences matter tremendously, especially when reputations are involved. And this is where internet storytelling can become dangerous. One person posts an allegation, another account summarizes it, a third person adds commentary, and suddenly the fifth version sounds dramatically different from the original statement. By the time the rumor reaches thousands of viewers, details may have been added that nobody actually confirmed. That is why Khadija should not automatically be assigned a role in this situation simply because her name is being discussed. Until reliable information establishes the circumstances, anything beyond the available evidence remains speculation. But from an entertainment standpoint, the timing could not be more explosive. Remy has already demonstrated that she is willing to address controversy through music and public statements, while Claressa has shown that she is perfectly capable of responding when her name enters the conversation. Papoose has also defended himself publicly, meaning there are several people involved who are not afraid to tell their version of events. That creates a situation where one new interview, live stream, song, or social media post could completely redirect the narrative overnight. And fans are watching Remy particularly closely because when a rapper responds through music, there are layers to examine. A direct statement tells you exactly what someone wants you to hear. A rap verse can contain double meanings, coded references, jokes, warnings, and personal details that listeners may interpret differently. Sometimes fans correctly identify the target. Other times, they convince themselves a general lyric is secretly about somebody specific. Either way, the speculation creates momentum, and momentum keeps the story trending. The bigger question now is whether Remy believes the newest rumors strengthen anything she previously suggested about Papoose, or whether she considers them completely unrelated. That distinction could determine where this story goes next. If she acknowledges the claims, viewers will immediately revisit everything she has said before. If she ignores them, people may interpret the silence in completely opposite ways, even though silence proves nothing. And that is what makes this entire situation so unpredictable. Everybody is waiting for somebody else to make the next move. Remy could respond. Papoose could challenge the narrative. Claressa could decide she is tired of seeing her name dragged into old arguments. Shalita could provide additional context about what she claims to know. Or Khadija could address the speculation herself. Until that happens, the internet is filling in the blanks. And history tells us that those blanks can become more dramatic than the confirmed story. Because behind all the viral arguments, one unresolved question remains. Who actually knows the complete timeline? And what happens if that person finally decides to tell everything? And if somebody eventually decides to put the entire timeline on the table, that could be the moment when this story changes completely, because right now the biggest source of confusion is not necessarily what people are saying, but when they claim certain events happened. Timelines can expose contradictions faster than arguments ever will. If one person says a relationship began after a separation while another suggests it started earlier, even a small difference in dates can completely change public perception. That is why viewers keep digging through old posts and interviews involving Remy Ma, Papoose, and Claressa Shields. They are not only searching for drama, they are searching for something that establishes when the relationship dynamics actually shifted. The fascinating thing is that celebrity relationships often look completely different from the outside. Fans might see anniversary posts, smiling photographs, romantic captions, and public appearances while serious problems are unfolding privately. Then, when the relationship eventually collapses, people start examining those old moments for signs they believe they missed. A photograph suddenly looks uncomfortable. An interview suddenly sounds suspicious. A harmless comment suddenly becomes evidence in somebody's theory. But hindsight can be deceptive. Once viewers know a relationship eventually experienced problems, it becomes incredibly easy to reinterpret ordinary moments as warnings, even when there is no proof that those moments meant anything at the time. That same caution should apply to the rumors surrounding Khadija. Her name being mentioned does not automatically establish that every claim circulating online is accurate. Shalita Savage's commentary may have encouraged people to investigate further, but viewers still need to distinguish between allegations, personal interpretations, and independently verified information. This story already contains enough confirmed public conflict without turning every rumor into a fact. And yet, from the perspective of social media, uncertainty is exactly what keeps people watching. If everything were immediately confirmed or denied with undeniable evidence, there would be nothing left for internet detectives to debate. Then there is Claressa, who remains one of the most unpredictable figures in the entire situation because she has repeatedly shown that she is willing to speak for herself. Her career was built on confidence, discipline, and competition, so expecting her to disappear simply because people are criticizing her would probably be unrealistic. When her relationship with Papoose became public conversation, she suddenly found herself dealing with an audience far beyond boxing. Hip-hop blogs, entertainment channels, gossip pages, and social media commentators all began analyzing her personal life. That kind of attention can transform a private relationship into content almost instantly. Remy understands that environment from another direction. She came through battle rap culture, where words are weapons and reputation matters enormously. When somebody questions her credibility, her relationships, or her career, audiences naturally expect a response because responding has always been embedded in the culture that helped make her famous. That is why her musical reactions generate so much interest. People are listening not only for entertainment but for clues. Every punchline becomes something to decode, and every possible reference becomes another reason for commentators to reopen the timeline. But perhaps the most important person in determining where this goes next is Papoose himself. For years, much of his public identity was connected to loyalty, marriage, and supporting Remy. Now his name is attached to a completely different conversation involving separation, accusations, Claressa, and additional rumors circulating online. He has challenged narratives about himself before, so another response would not be surprising. The question is whether responding would actually clarify anything, or simply create another round of competing claims. Because that has been the pattern throughout this entire situation. Somebody speaks, another person responds, audiences choose sides, and then new information creates another argument. Instead of reaching a conclusion, the story keeps expanding. Shalita's claims involving Khadija are simply the newest reason people are looking backward and asking whether earlier assumptions need to be reconsidered. And there is another possibility nobody should ignore. Some of these controversies may not connect at all. The internet loves building one giant conspiracy from several unrelated pieces because the bigger story is usually more entertaining. But entertainment and accuracy are not always the same thing. Until credible evidence establishes a connection, viewers should resist treating speculation as confirmation. Still, one thing is undeniable. Public interest has not disappeared. Every time it seems like the Remy, Papoose, and Claressa situation is finally cooling down, another statement or allegation puts their names right back into the conversation. And now that additional people are being discussed, the stakes are becoming even higher. So the next move matters. If Remy speaks directly about these newer rumors, people will analyze every sentence. If Papoose responds, his timeline will immediately be compared with hers. If Claressa addresses Remy again, social media will turn it into another showdown. And if Khadija decides to tell her own side, the entire conversation could shift overnight. Because sometimes the person everybody is discussing is the one person holding the detail that nobody else expected. Now I want to know what you think, because this situation has officially developed more twists than anybody expected. Do you think Remy Ma's response changed the way people are looking at Claressa Shields and Papoose? Or do you think social media is connecting dots that were never connected in the first place? And what about the claims and rumors being discussed by Shalita Savage involving Papoose and Khadija? Do you think there is more information waiting to come out? Or has this story become so tangled that speculation is starting to overshadow what has actually been confirmed? Drop your thoughts in the comments, but remember to keep the conversation respectful. There are real people involved, and allegations circulating online should not automatically be treated as proven facts. And if you have been following this drama from the beginning, tell me whose version of the timeline makes the most sense to you so far. Remy's? Papoose's? Claressa's? Or are you waiting for more receipts before choosing any side? Because something tells me this conversation is not finished yet. One interview, one live stream, one screenshot, or one unexpected response could send everybody right back to the timeline. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more celebrity news, relationship drama, hip-hop updates, and deep dives into the stories taking over social media, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you never miss an update. Share this video with somebody who has been following the situation too, because I already know the comment section is about to have plenty to say. And until the next update drops, keep watching, keep questioning, and always separate the receipts from the rumors.